Oregon's coast begins with a sound, a relentless rhythm of Pacific waves pounding against cliffs older than written history. Mist curls through ancient forests, wrapping itself around towering cedars that have watched centuries pass in silence. Sea stacks rise like broken monuments from the surf, their jagged silhouettes hinting at stories the ocean has tried to swallow. At first glance, this coastline feels peaceful, a wild beauty untouched by time. But beneath the calm surface lies a truth far more unsettling: this is a land built on ruin. For generations, fishermen, hikers, and coastal tribes have spoken of entire towns swallowed overnight, devoured by storms that arrived too suddenly to escape. After violent tempests, beachgoers occasionally discover ancient structures emerging from the sand: stone formations, wooden posts blackened by centuries, fragments of architecture belonging to cultures with no names in any ethnographic record. Some describe strange carvings exposed only at extreme low tides, visible for minutes before the sea drags them back into oblivion. These aren't isolated tales. Throughout Oregon's rocky shoreline, whispers persist of cultures whose names we never learned, societies that flourished long before the tribes known today. Archaeologists quietly acknowledge that sea level rise and tectonic shifts have erased countless coastal settlements, entire chapters of human history swept into the Pacific. Yet some ruins remain stubbornly present, resurfacing after storms like memories the ocean is trying, and failing, to forget. The contrast is eerie, a breathtaking landscape hiding secrets that pulse just beneath the surface. Forests that seem eternal conceal collapsed mounds, cliffs eroded by wind and water reveal chambers carved by vanished hands, and beaches that look untouched hold artifacts far older than accepted timelines allow. As the tide pulls back and the mist thins, one question lingers in the salt-heavy air: what vanished peoples once walked here, long before the tribes we know today? According to textbooks, Oregon's human history follows a clean and orderly timeline. The first coastal migrants arrived thousands of years ago, traveling along the Pacific Rim in small groups and settling near river mouths rich with fish and shellfish. These early communities evolved into skilled maritime societies, crafting canoes from massive cedars and harvesting the ocean with nets, traps, and ingenious tidal fisheries. Over time, distinct cultures emerged: the Tillamook along the northern coast, the Clatsop near the mouth of the Columbia River, and the Coos and Siuslaw peoples farther south. Their traditions, wood carving, basketry, salmon harvesting, are well documented, forming the backbone of Oregon's official archaeological narrative. But beneath this confident story lies a coastline full of contradictions. The first problem is the absence of preserved structures. For cultures that occupied the coast for thousands of years, surprisingly little remains: no longhouse foundations older than a few centuries, no preserved villages beyond the most recent layers. The explanation, academics say, is simple: coastal erosion. The Pacific has swallowed generation after generation of settlements. Entire landscapes have collapsed into the waves. But this raises a difficult question: if the ocean erased so much, how can we be certain the official story is complete? Then there are the conflicting timelines. Some shell middens and charred hearths date back far earlier than the accepted estimates for human presence in Oregon, layers suggesting occupation during periods considered uninhabitable by mainstream models. Geological records show catastrophic events, tsunamis, and land drops that should have wiped out settlements, yet artifacts and cultural layers continue uninterrupted across those boundaries. Conversely, other sites show abrupt breaks, centuries-long gaps in population, right when oral histories speak of destruction, migration, or mysterious disappearances. Another puzzle lies in the non-local materials found in supposedly isolated early sites: obsidian from distant volcanic fields, carved stones resembling northern Pacific cultures, and pigments whose chemical signatures do not match any known regional source. These anomalies imply long-range contact long before the official timeline allows, or the presence of groups whose origins remain unidentified. Still more unsettling are the scattered reports of structures exposed only during extreme tides, timbers arranged in patterns inconsistent with Tillamook or Clatsop construction, stone alignments uncovered after violent storms, or remnants of what look like walkways or retaining walls embedded deep within eroded cliffs. These fragments appear older than any documented coastal settlement, hinting at civilizations erased before recorded memory. Textbooks present Oregon's coastal history with confidence. But the coastline, unstable, eroding, and continually revealing what it once concealed, tells a different story. A story of missing chapters, unrecorded peoples, and timelines that refuse to align. With every storm that strips away another layer of sand, the official narrative grows thinner. And the question becomes harder to ignore: if the ocean erased so much, what truths are still hidden beneath the waves? Every few years, usually after a violent winter storm or a low tide pulled unnaturally far back, Oregon's coastline reveals something it was never meant to show: villages that should not exist, fragments of ancient life emerging from sand as if the ocean briefly loosens its grip. These are not the remains of known tribal settlements, nor the remnants of documented fishing camps. They are older, stranger, and utterly incompatible with the official timeline. One of the most startling examples appears near certain northern beaches, where storms have exposed rows of wooden posts, blackened by centuries and arranged in geometric patterns no archaeologist has been able to classify. These timbers, buried beneath 15 feet of sand, do not match the construction methods of the Tillamook, Clatsop, or any other coastal tribe. Some posts appear sharpened, others interlocked, creating frameworks that look more like seawalls, docks, or ancient coastal platforms. Their age remains hotly debated. Radiocarbon tests suggest some could be thousands of years older than the earliest accepted human presence along the Pacific Northwest coast. Even more perplexing are the submerged fire pits discovered during extreme low tides. These stone-lined circles contain charcoal, bone fragments, and fish processing tools, yet their dating often predates the migration windows recognized by mainstream archaeology. Some researchers quietly admit these sites hint at coastal occupation long before humans were supposed to be here. Others insist the dates must be wrong because accepting them would unravel the entire model of North American prehistory. Then there are the carved stones, smooth, water-polished slabs with patterns, grooves, and symbols that resemble no known tribal style. Some bear spirals similar to those found in ancient Pacific cultures, others display blocky, almost architectural cuts. A few even feature humanoid shapes with elongated limbs, imagery more reminiscent of early Asian or Polynesian traditions than anything linked to the Pacific Northwest tribes. These finds often vanish as quickly as they appear, reclaimed by tide and sand before they can be fully documented. Science tries to keep pace with these revelations, but the coastline seems determined to stay one step ahead. Archaeologists scramble to record exposed structures, only to watch them disappear beneath shifting dunes or collapse into the sea days later. Reports pile up: half-buried hearths, wooden causeways, stone arrangements, but without sustained access, they remain unresolved mysteries. Indigenous oral traditions complicate the picture further. Along the Oregon coast, stories tell of ancient kingdoms, seafaring peoples who navigated great distances, and settlements that once stretched far beyond today's shoreline. Some tribes speak of ancestors who watched cities crumble into the ocean during legendary quakes and tsunamis. Others hint at strangers, tall, foreign sailors, who arrived long before Europeans and perhaps long before the tribes themselves. These accounts, largely dismissed by textbook history, increasingly align with what the storms reveal. What makes these vanished villages so haunting is their impermanence. They emerge only when conditions are extreme, after seismic upheaval, after cyclones, after tides that empty the shore like a draining basin. They surface just long enough to challenge established timelines, then slip away again, swallowed by the relentless Pacific. Each appearance leaves behind only questions: who built these settlements? How old are they really? And why do they exist in a place where no culture, according to official history, should have been? One thing is certain: the ocean reveals its secrets reluctantly. And the vanished villages of Oregon appear only long enough to remind us how much of the coastline's past is still missing. The key to understanding Oregon's strangest archaeological mysteries lies not just in its sands and forests, but deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, where the Cascadia subduction zone slowly tightens like a fist. This immense geological boundary, capable of generating some of the most powerful earthquakes on Earth, has shaped the coastline for millennia. And with each catastrophic shift, entire worlds may have been erased before history even had a chance to remember them. Scientists now know that Cascadia has unleashed repeated megaquakes and tsunamis, some so violent they dropped entire coastal regions by 8 feet in a matter of minutes. Forests drowned instantly. Villages vanished. Shorelines were redrawn overnight. Modern research proves these disasters occurred roughly every few centuries, often with no warning. But archaeology hints at an even stranger implication: they may have wiped out civilizations far older and more advanced than official history acknowledges. In several coastal dig sites, researchers have found longhouses collapsed inward, as if crushed by sudden ground liquefaction. Inside them lie pottery shards, cooking stones, and fish processing tools, some still arranged as though abandoned mid-task. Charred baskets sit beside extinguished hearths. Clay vessels rest beside half-prepared meals. Nothing suggests a gradual migration or planned relocation, everything suggests panic, haste, and sudden ruin. At one site, a ceremonial platform shows signs of having been tilted and submerged in a single catastrophic incident. At another, a cluster of wooden posts, likely part of a large communal structure, leans at uniform angles, all pushed by the same violent force. The carbon layers above these ruins often contain tsunami sand, ocean sediment packed with shells, driftwood, and pulverized stone. Yet what truly unsettles researchers is the timing. Many advanced coastal settlements, including those featuring anomalous stonework, non-local materials, or unusual architectural planning, seem to disappear moments before major Cascadia events. Not years before. Not decades. Moments. Archaeologists describe abrupt cultural breaks where one layer ends suddenly, replaced by flood deposits and silence. It is as though these communities were wiped clean in an instant, leaving no continuity, no survivors, no descendants who carried their knowledge inland. Scientific accounts lean toward caution, phrasing these connections as coincidences or incomplete records. But among coastal tribes, the stories are far more direct. Oral histories speak of entire nations swallowed by the sea, of mountains shaking until villages fell into the earth, of monstrous waves erasing cities along the ancient shoreline. Some tales mention great lights in the sky preceding the destruction, others speak of angry spirits beneath the water, or the sea taking back what was stolen. Archaeologists typically interpret these stories as mythologized memories of real disasters. Yet when the physical evidence, collapsed structures, instant abandonment, vanished settlements, align so precisely with the legends, the line between myth and memory blurs. And the puzzles deepen. Some of these lost sites show signs of having been unusually advanced: complex woodworking, ceremonial engineering, and large communal layouts inconsistent with their supposed era. Why do the most anomalous settlements vanish right before geological catastrophe? Was it pure timing? Or were these civilizations living on the edge of a danger they understood all too well? The Cascadia subduction zone may explain the destruction. But it does not explain the complexity. It does not explain the strange artifacts left behind. It does not explain the abrupt disappearance of cultures with no clear ancestors or successors. So the question that hangs over Oregon's coast grows harder to ignore: were these civilizations simply victims of nature, or victims of something else entirely? Along Oregon's rugged coastline, where basalt cliffs plunge into roaring surf and mist curls like breath from the deep, tribal legends preserve a memory that defies the official narrative. Long before Europeans arrived, long before the tribes themselves claimed dominance, strangers came from the sea. These were not mere visitors. They were builders, navigators, and wanderers unlike any known coastal culture. The Chinook called them people with long paddles. The Tillamook spoke of tall ones from beyond the horizon. The Coquille described them simply as those who arrived from the rising waves. According to these traditions, these maritime peoples traveled in large, ocean-worthy vessels, canoes carved with precision, reinforced with ribs of hardwood, capable of cutting through the fiercest Pacific storms. Some tales speak of hulls sealed with resin unfamiliar to local tribes, or sails woven from fibers that did not exist in the region. Their arrival triggered awe and caution. They wore clothing unlike local styles, carried tools crafted from foreign materials, and moved with the confidence of seasoned navigators who had mastered vast waters. What makes these stories so compelling is their strange consistency with cultures thousands of miles away. Certain descriptions resemble the shipbuilders of Polynesia, masters of wind, tide, and star navigation. Others evoke the Ainu of northern Japan, known for their maritime trade routes and distinctive physical traits. A few echoes hint at early Asian or Siberian voyagers who may have crossed the Pacific long before recorded history. While mainstream archaeology insists that such contact is unlikely, the petroglyphs scattered along Oregon's cliffs tell a different tale. On coastal rocks near the Columbia River and along secluded southern beaches, carvings depict boats with curved prows, elongated oars, and crews standing in formation. Some figures appear broader-shouldered and taller than local depictions of indigenous people. Others are shown wearing helmets or headdresses with unfamiliar designs. A few petroglyphs show entire flotillas, rows of long vessels carved with detail too deliberate to dismiss as symbolic or mythic. Archaeologists commonly categorize these carvings as ritual art or exaggerated memory. But the details, the carved lashings on boat hulls, the depiction of outriggers, the stylized wave patterns used in Pacific Island traditions, suggest a level of maritime sophistication far exceeding what coastal tribes practiced prior to European contact. Could Oregon have once been a waypoint, or even a homeland, for a forgotten seafaring network? One that connected the Pacific Rim long before modern timelines allow. Indigenous oral accounts deepen the mystery. Some tribes claim these strangers built sea temples, wooden ceremonial platforms near estuaries, later swallowed by tsunamis or buried beneath shifting sands. Others describe trade relationships that ended suddenly, as if the maritime people vanished without warning. A few stories hint that these sea travelers did not merely visit, they settled, intermarried, built, and eventually disappeared in a catastrophe remembered only in myth. Whether these legends describe real navigators lost to time, or symbolic representations of spiritual beings, the similarities to distant cultures are chilling. The carvings remain. The stories persist. And the coastline continues to reveal fragments, hulls, tools, pigments, that whisper of voyages erased from official history. The question that rises with each wave is not whether these sea peoples existed, but how far their influence reached, and why their presence was buried by both ocean and time. Scattered along Oregon's wave-battered cliffs and tidal flats are petroglyphs that refuse to fit neatly into any known cultural tradition. These carvings, etched into basalt, sandstone, and ancient beach rock, have endured earthquakes, tsunamis, and centuries of storms, surviving long after their creators vanished. They are Oregon's forbidden coastal petroglyphs, symbols so enigmatic that archaeologists struggle to classify them, and local tribes often avoid discussing them altogether. Among the most striking are the deep spirals carved into cliff faces overlooking violent surf. Some spirals radiate outward like energy pulses, others curl inward to a single point, suggesting a vortex or gateway. These patterns resemble designs seen in ancient Pacific cultures, from Polynesian navigation art to early Japanese shamanic carvings. Yet Oregon's spirals are older, significantly older, than the timeline's mainstream archaeology is comfortable acknowledging. Even more unsettling are the humanoid figures. Some stand with elongated limbs, stick-thin bodies, and disproportionately large heads. Others appear mid-stride, as if walking between worlds. A few bear features not found in Northwest tribal art, arched backs, forked feet, or long, sweeping arms suggesting motion rather than static pose. Their style mirrors certain Siberian, Ainu, and even early Southeast Asian figures, raising questions about ancient Trans-Pacific influence. Then there are the symbols that resemble scripts, clusters of short lines, repeating geometric blocks, and intricate cross-hatched markings that feel more like writing than imagery. Some researchers propose they are tribal storytelling or ritual notation. Others dismiss them as weathering marks enhanced by human imagination. But several panels show patterns too consistent, too intentional, to be chalked up to erosion. Scientific interpretations remain conservative. Archaeologists categorize the petroglyphs as ceremonial expressions, shamanic visions, or cultural mythmaking, art reflecting stories told around fires rather than literal records. Weathering, they argue, distorts the original shapes, making them appear more mysterious than they once were. Yet the more these carvings are studied, the harder the mundane explanations become to maintain. Some symbols appear only at sites connected to vanished settlements or submerged structures. Others show storm-exposed layers revealing multiple generations of carving, suggesting long-term importance, not casual decoration. A few sit near ancient tsunami debris, as if placed deliberately to mark places of danger or memory. More mysterious theories propose that these carvings may be records of visitors who came from distant lands, or warnings etched after catastrophic events along the ancient coastline. Some believe the line clusters represent fragments of a lost written language belonging to a civilization erased by the Pacific's rising tides. No matter which interpretation one favors, one fact remains undeniable: these symbols survived everything the coastline could throw at them. They endured centuries of salt, wind, and thunderous surf. They endured earthquakes large enough to reshape the land. They endured the disappearance of the cultures that carved them. And that endurance whispers something unsettling: someone wanted these symbols to last. Someone wanted their message to outlive them. What that message is, remains hidden in stone, waiting for someone brave enough to understand it. When Oregon's tides retreat after a violent storm, they sometimes leave behind more than driftwood and shattered shells. Scattered along the rack line or buried beneath layers of kelp are artifacts that should not exist here, objects whose origins challenge every known timeline and cultural boundary of the Pacific Northwest. These strange finds surface briefly, ignite academic debate, and then vanish into private collections, restricted archives, or the deep silence of the ocean once more. Some of the most startling discoveries are copper and bronze fragments, recovered from beaches where no such metallurgy existed until recent centuries. These bits of smooth metal, curved plates, rivet-like pieces, and corroded loops, test far older than the region's indigenous metalworking traditions. The official explanation is always the same: shipwreck debris, logging equipment, or modern contamination. Yet these artifacts frequently appear in layers beneath centuries-old sediment, uncovered only after storms tear away entire sections of beach. Their shaping suggests tools, fittings, or ornaments, not industrial scrap. Equally baffling are carved stones displaying patterns unmistakably reminiscent of South American and Asian cultures. Some bear geometric etchings similar to Andean textiles or early Peruvian iconography. Others echo Jomon-era Japanese spirals or Siberian shamanic markings. These stones often appear near submerged wooden structures or ancient charcoal deposits, suggesting they were part of settlements long lost to the Pacific, not simply random imports from passing ships. Despite their clear craftsmanship, official reports usually label them unprovenanced curiosities. Even more mysterious are the wooden tools preserved in natural pitch and tar pockets. Some resemble paddles, wedges, or ceremonial implements, others appear to be fragments of composite tools once reinforced with resin. The pitch has protected them for centuries, sometimes millennia, allowing their carved surfaces to remain intact. Their design does not match any known tribal toolkit. Some show joinery techniques more similar to Polynesian or Micronesian craftsmanship than to anything indigenous to the northwest coast. But perhaps the most controversial discoveries are the anomalous beads, tiny, colorful, shockingly durable. Chemical analysis in a handful of documented cases revealed compositions similar to ancient Chinese glasswork or Polynesian shell bead manufacturing. These beads appear only along the coast, clustered near vanished villages, buried posts, or carved stones. Never inland. never near known trade routes. Their presence suggests either trans-Pacific contact far earlier than accepted, or remnants of coastal cultures whose connections spanned oceans before Cascadia's quakes erased them. Academics often dismiss these artifacts with familiar phrases: trade contamination, shipwreck dispersal, misidentification. But these explanations fall apart under scrutiny. Why do the foreign-style artifacts appear only along Oregon's coast, and specifically at sites associated with submerged settlements, strange petroglyphs, and anomalous wood structures? Why do none of these objects show up inland, where trade goods would logically disperse? Why do many of them predate known migration timelines? Taken together, the pattern is unmistakable. The coastline is a graveyard of cultures and connections, a place where clues to long-lost trade routes, ancient seafarers, or even forgotten civilizations rise from the Pacific only to be swallowed again. The sea gives just enough evidence to provoke questions, never enough to offer answers. Every strange artifact seems to whisper the same haunting possibility: before Cascadia shattered the shoreline, before the ocean reclaimed entire worlds, Oregon may have been a crossroads for peoples whose stories were erased by waves. Far beyond the tide line, beneath the icy churn of Oregon's restless Pacific, lies a realm few have seen and even fewer understand. For decades, fishermen have spoken of nets snagging on stone ridges where no natural formations should exist. Divers whisper about terraced ledges, carved boulders, and underwater steps arranged with eerie precision. And now, with modern sonar sweeping the continental shelf, the whispers are becoming something impossible to ignore. Oregon's coast may be hiding a sunken world, a drowned civilization erased long before history began. Initial sonar scans, dismissed years ago as glitches, revealed rectilinear formations lying miles offshore. When newer, higher-resolution mapping was conducted, the shapes sharpened, long, straight lines intersecting at right angles, clusters of blocks arranged like foundations, broad, shallow walls forming what appears to be a terrace system. These are not the chaotic scatterings of broken rock. They are geometric, intentional, patterns that imply design. One formation, resting nearly 200 feet underwater, resembles the outline of a massive longhouse, complete with parallel support rows and a central corridor. Another consists of stepped platforms, ascending and descending like a primitive stairway carved into the seafloor. Still another shows a winding arrangement of boulders that looks uncannily like a stone pathway, each boulder placed with deliberate spacing. Fishermen recount strange encounters: nets pulled taut by unseen structures, anchors catching on straight edges, the unnatural sensation of dragging equipment across flat plains rather than sand or reef. A handful of divers, braving cold water, violent currents, and limited visibility, describe swimming past walls of basalt blocks, their surfaces too smooth to be natural erosion. Others report patterns of holes drilled into stone, perfectly spaced, as if once used for wooden beams or lashings. Skeptics argue these features are simply remnants of ancient landslides or peculiar erosion. But the similarities to known submerged sites across the world are impossible to ignore. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument displays terraces and geometric shapes once thought impossible until divers proved otherwise. In northern Europe, the sunken plains of Doggerland once connected whole cultures before the sea claimed them. In both cases, conventional history was forced to expand, forced to admit forgotten worlds had existed beneath the waves. Oregon's shelf may be no different. Geologists confirm that during the last ice age, the coastline extended dozens of miles farther west. Entire river valleys, forests, and lake systems, now underwater, were once habitable. If cultures thrived there, they would have been wiped out by rising seas, tsunamis, or the violent heaving of the Cascadia subduction zone. Their settlements, temples, workshops, and pathways would have been swallowed whole, preserved only as ghostly outlines on the seafloor. And that is exactly what sonar seems to reveal. What unsettles researchers most is that some structures appear abandoned long before the ocean reached them. Scattered artifacts found by divers, stone tools lodged in high terraces, pitch-coated wooden fragments caught in crevices, suggest these places were deserted centuries before submersion. This implies evacuation. Or collapse. Or something far stranger. If Oregon's drowned terraces were once home to an ancient culture, then their disappearance may reflect a catastrophe lost to time. Perhaps they fled an environmental shift, a seismic omen, or a force remembered only in tribal legends. Perhaps the Cascadia quakes wiped them out entirely. Or perhaps, as some oral histories suggest, they left because something else arrived first. The Pacific keeps its secrets well. But every sonar scan, every diver report, every storm-tossed artifact brings Oregon's underwater world closer to recognition, and its forgotten builders closer to resurrection. And some ruins appear to have been abandoned long before they were swallowed by the sea. The mysteries of Oregon's coast stretch far beyond scattered artifacts and submerged ruins. They hint at a lost chapter of human history, a story erased by waves, earthquakes, and time. But what kind of civilization, or civilizations, could have left such contradictory clues? Researchers publicly maintain caution, but privately, they ask far bolder questions. Theories swirl like the Pacific fog, some reasonable, some radical, all rooted in real archaeological anomalies that refuse to disappear. One possibility is that Oregon was once home to prehistoric maritime cultures predating modern tribes. These were not simple fishing bands, but large, organized societies capable of constructing docks, terraces, and sea temples. Their craftsmanship, seen in carved posts, wooden structures preserved in pitch, and patterned stones, suggests a sophistication older than any local tradition. These cultures may have risen during the last ice age, when sea levels were far lower and vast stretches of the continental shelf were dry, fertile ground. When the oceans surged after the melting of glacial ice, their settlements would have been swallowed whole. Another theory centers on survivors of Ice Age floods, people who escaped drowned continents or collapsing coastlines elsewhere before resettling along the ancient Oregon shore. Their tools and carvings, bearing similarities to South American, Asian, and even Polynesian traditions, could reflect a tapestry of cultural memories from lands that no longer exist. This idea is supported by submerged ruins showing signs of advanced construction, abandoned long before the ocean engulfed them. Then there are the theories of early trans-Pacific contact. Could Polynesian navigators, master astronomers of the ocean, have reached Oregon centuries or millennia earlier than officially recognized? The presence of Polynesian-style tools, beads matching ancient Chinese manufacture, and petroglyphs resembling Ainu or Siberian imagery suggest long-distance voyages not yet acknowledged by scholarship. If true, Oregon may have been a waypoint in a forgotten network of global maritime travel. A more dramatic interpretation imagines a lost coastal empire, its foundations lying offshore, its influence stretching across the Pacific Northwest. This hypothetical kingdom may have thrived until the Cascadia subduction zone struck with catastrophic force, shattering cities, drowning forests, and burying entire cultures beneath the ocean. The sudden disappearance of advanced settlements, perfectly synchronized with geological evidence of megathrust quakes, lends weight to this idea. And then, there is the possibility of something even older, an echo of a highly advanced society erased by time, its knowledge fragmented into oral traditions and scattered artifacts. The precision of submerged structures, the foreign-style carvings, and the anomalous metal fragments hint at a past that does not fit neatly into the established timeline of human development. Not a legend, not fantasy, but a civilization advanced in ways we no longer recognize, extinguished by sea rise, seismic collapse, or forces unrecorded in surviving lore. Science prefers conservative explanations, misdated artifacts, coincidental similarities, natural formations mistaken for architecture. Yet even among archaeologists, geologists, and oceanographers, whispers persist. Quiet admissions in unrecorded conversations. Field notes hinting at impossible alignments. Divers swearing they saw worked stone where none should exist. Oregon's coast, with its vanished villages, forbidden petroglyphs, and sunken geometric forms, may be more than an archaeological curiosity. It may hold the keys to a global network of prehistoric travel, trade, or knowledge, a network fragmented by rising seas and seismic devastation. Whether these clues point to a lost world, a migrant kingdom, or something altogether beyond our current understanding, one truth remains: the coastline is still speaking. We just haven't learned how to listen. Along Oregon's rugged shoreline, where waves crash like ancient drums and fog drapes the cliffs in shifting veils, the Pacific is more than a body of water. It is a graveyard, a vast, restless keeper of worlds erased by time. Every tide drags at the edges of forgotten settlements. Every storm churns the sand that hides broken tools, lost carvings, and timbers from civilizations that vanished long before the first recorded tribe walked these shores. The coastline feels alive with memory, as if each breath of salt wind carries fragments of stories too old, too painful, or too strange to survive in human telling. Erosion has done what conquerors never could: it has swallowed entire villages, rewritten landscapes, and buried histories deep beneath the waves. Rising seas have erased the handiwork of peoples whose names we may never know. And the violent heaving of the Cascadia subduction zone has shattered whole cultures in a single night, leaving only ghost traces, posts preserved in sand, petroglyphs staring from cliffs, artifacts washed ashore like messages from the abyss. Yet the ocean never keeps its secrets completely. Every winter storm rips open another wound in the beach and reveals something new: a row of ancient wooden stakes, a stone tool older than accepted timelines, a pattern on the seafloor that should not exist. Each revelation is a doorway into a world we never realized was hiding beneath our feet, or beneath the tide. And still, the deeper we look, the more unsettling the picture becomes. The Pacific coast is not a blank edge of the map. It is a palimpsest, written and rewritten by waves, tectonics, and forgotten hands. It forces us to confront a chilling possibility: that our understanding of history is shallow compared to the ocean depths that guard its evidence. That what we call prehistory may be nothing more than the ruins we have not yet found. As the surf roars against the cliffs and the light fades across the horizon, one question rises like a whisper from the drowned world below: how many civilizations must we rediscover, before we admit history is older than we believe?